It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Lourdes University head women's soccer coach, Coach Jackie Phillips. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in college coaching?
Absolutely. So I originally didn't realize that I could become a college coach and this could be my profession. It wasn't until I was a graduate assistant at Frostburg State University, my alma mater, that I started to realize that, oh, I can make a living out of this. And once I knew that, I kind of hit the ground running, and obviously I'm where I'm at now. So,
Of course, what was it like playing college soccer for Froston State?
So I absolutely loved my experience at Frostburg State. It was something that I still to this day look back on very fondly. I have friends in which I still am in close contact with that were teammates of mine. I absolutely, obviously loved playing at the collegiate level as well too. The competitive environment, the training, the grind, all of it was just, I mean, there's no better experience in my mind. So I very much have fond memories of my time at Frostburg.
Of course, what were some of your playing accomplishments and what was it like getting to put on that red jersey?
Absolutely. So for me, I ended up starting every game of my career, playing almost every minute of my career as well too, which was just a dream. I earned honorable mention and second team all accolades in our conference, and I earned Defensive Player of the Year twice through our within our program, my junior and senior, or my sophomore, my senior year.
Of course, coming out of college, what was it like getting into coaching and in the inaugural season for the Capella?
For who again? Sorry, I couldn't make out that last. You kind of cut out.
What was it like coaching in your inaugural season for the Tupelo VC?
Oh, for Toledo Villa?
Hmm?
So for Toledo Villa, that was a great experience. That was the first time in the Toledo area that we had a women's team of that caliber. And so it was enjoyable to be a part of that inaugural process and evaluating players and, games that were being played against other opponents. That was a really enjoyable first year. And I know that there are talks of bringing that team actually back to the Toledo area, which would be very exciting.
Of course, how was that like coaching for the Tupelo and coaching professionally?
I enjoyed, like I said, I enjoyed working with that caliber of athlete. There is a level of competitive drive and obviously skill set that is extremely special to be a part of. And I very much enjoyed working with that type of player.
What was it like being a part of the Michigan ODP coaching staff?
So Michigan ODP was something I did for the first time this past summer, and I'm continuing on throughout the winter sessions with them as well too. And again, I thoroughly enjoyed my time with Michigan ODP, and the reason for that being it was really because it was a new role in which I hadn't been in for quite some time. I was in an assistant role, and so it allowed me to kind of step back and again focus on the player. The individual player management and coaching side of things. I was really able to just, as the head coach was, performing the training session, I was able to pull players aside and individually work with them and talk to them about what I saw. And so it was nice because it was a new role that I hadn't been in some time. And again, the player and the quality of players and the caliber there was a high level, and so it was really fun to see their development in a short amount of time.
Of course, how was it like going back to your alma mater to become the assistant coach there?
So that was a hard transition. You transition from originally being a member of that team to now being a part of the coaching staff. And you have to learn to establish boundaries pretty quickly. And so that was a challenge at first. And I had to figure out exactly where those boundaries lie, and how can I be impactful, and how can I, obviously be a part of the coaching staff and help the coaching staff, while at the same time, helping my former teammates and friends understand that now I'm in this new role. So there's definitely some challenges that came about with that.
Of course, how is that feeling like being on the sidelines of your alma mater versus obviously playing in the game?
Good question. It was tough. The reason I originally got into coaching is because I loved the game so much, and I did not want soccer to be out of my life. And so this was kind of the second best route if I wasn't going to continue on playing, because I knew I wanted to get my master's as well too. I wanted to continue my education. So that was definitely a challenge at first, but obviously just being a part of the game still was really important for me. And so you eventually learn to embrace your new role. So,
Of course, leaving your alma mater, what was it like leaving there to go to Adrian College?
so that was my first big girl step. That was my first really transition away from my comfort zone. Because originally, that's where I'd gone to school for 4 years, and then the 2 additional with my grad program. My family was only an hour and a half away. And so moving out to Michigan, I was 6 hours away from home. And so it was a completely different and new experience for me. I remember at first, initially, it was very lonely. Especially in the coaching world, and not knowing a lot of people in the Michigan coaching scene. And so I remember the first 6 months being rather hard. And so eventually, though, you start to build those relationships and those connections. And I was grateful because there was other coaches in my situation as assistants and grad assistants that were in the same boat. And so we had kind of made friendships, and that helped that transition a bit. So relationships were important in that time.
Of course, during that time, how was it like getting promoted to become the associate head coach?
So I was extremely grateful and thankful for the coach that I was working with, Ali Alamandari. He's been at Adrian now for a long time, and has had a great deal of success. He afforded me that opportunity to continue to grow and develop as a coach, which you don't always get those opportunities. And so he had the faith, and he allotted me that chance. And I am definitely forever grateful for him helping to, again, take my profession, take this role that I've come to love, and to continue to grow in it. So.
How was it like obviously taking over as the reserved head coach for 4 seasons?
So again, that opportunity in itself really helped shape me to become the coach that I am now. That gave me a lot of autonomy, and it allowed me to figure out what works in my coaching style, what doesn't work in my coaching style. So again, these opportunities to kind of get out there, get outside your comfort zone, and to fail at times was really, really key and important in figuring out my strengths and my weaknesses as a coach.
Of course, being the reserve coach, what were some of the things that helped you to know that you wanted to take that step to one day become the head coach and go to Lourdes?
Yeah, so I think that was just being in that position, being that reserve head coach, really helped solidify in my mind of the fact that I wanted to one day lead my own program, and one day have an impact on female student athletes, especially during this time in their life, where it's that bridge between obviously grade school and being at home, and then that transition to being a full-fledged adult. And so I knew I wanted to, it just further solidified the fact that I knew I wanted to have that impact and to lead young female athletes through the game of soccer.
Of course, how did it feel to obviously be announced as the next head coach for Lourdes women's soccer?
So extremely scary at first. There were a lot of nerves because the program there, prior to myself, there was no women's soccer program at Lourdes. And I had the duty to build it from the ground up. And so I knew this was a tall task. I knew there was a lot that needed to go into it. And that first year was just simply a lot of work, a lot of recruitment. And we were able to bring in 20 girls our very first year. And so when I first heard, I was obviously overjoyed, but at the same token, extremely nervous and didn't know what the future held at that time. So,
Of course, as you talked about building it, what was that like building it and building it as your own culture and obviously building it from the ground up?
yeah. So for me, the way we built our culture and the way we kind of formulated our program was we built it in, if you think of how you build a house, right? We had steps in which we wanted to accomplish and complete in order to lay a really good foundation for our team and our culture.
Of course, when you were announced as the first head coach for the program history, how did that feel?
Like I said, there was definitely a moment of oh my gosh, is this really happening? Oh my gosh, are we about to embark on this journey? And then that quickly kind of went to the side, and you realize, okay, this is what needs to get accomplished. Here's what we need to do. We've got this task and that task, the recruitment side of things. And so it was very short-lived in the sense that we knew right away, okay, there's a lot of things that have to get done now in a short period of time. So,
Of course, during your time so far, what are some of your accomplishments as a head coach?
so this is actually going into our 8th season as a program. And so we've had a couple of different accolades that I'm really proud of. Obviously on the soccer field, we've had 2 first team all WAC honorees. We've had a second team all WAC honoree. We've had multiple honorable mentions. Last season, we had our first ever newcomer of the year, the WAC newcomer of the year, in our goalkeeper, Emmy Roger. And we've had multiple players earn defensive and offensive players of the week through the conference. We've also had national recognition, NAIA defensive player of the week. But also, most importantly, is we've had a ton of success in the classroom as well too. We've had multiple players earn academic accolades throughout our now 8 years as being a program, and we've had 5 in our 7 years as a program. We've had 5 tournament appearances in our conference, which has been great. So,
Who are some of the teams that you face each week in your conference?
So in our conference, we primarily play Metro Detroit and Western Michigan teams. So in the Metro Detroit area, it's Lawrence Tech and Concordia. It's Siena Heights. You've got a multitude of different teams there. U of M Dearborn, Rochester. But you go out to the west side of Michigan, you've got Cornerstone and Aquinas, and then down south you have UNOH, and in Indiana you have Indiana Tech. So primarily regional teams.
Of course, what does a typical home game look like?
So for us, home games are fun. Like, we love home games. We love the environment. We love being able to defend our home turf. And so a typical home game, typically the girls will get together, they will begin their pregame, which is roughly about 2 hours prior to the match. From there, we'll then go into our pregame talk and what to expect and scouting, and keys and goals for the game. And then from there, we get into actual pregame. And so the girls will do their ACL prevention program. We'll then go into technical and small-sided drills, and then obviously come game time, we get after it.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've built?
Absolutely. So like I said, for us, building culture was really important. That is one staple of our program and our team that we are always going to put a large emphasis on. And so for us, we built it in layers. And so the first layer was our foundation. And our foundation was really about the frame and what keeps and what has grounds us to our program. And so the way we built that foundation is always remembering our why, right? Why are we doing what we're doing? And especially as a coach, for me, it was like, why am I doing what I'm doing? You know, always referring back to that why. So that's kind of the foundation of things. But really from there, we built it then through, if you're thinking of a house, you then start to build your frame, right? And so for us, our frame is really elements that help obviously have the house stay in structure, right? Have the house stay intact. So the way we build our frame is through our mission statement, through our vision, through our core values, through our goals. And so examples of that, you know, we have our mission statement for our program is to, with love, we play and compete like there is no tomorrow. We face adversity head on, and then always strive for progress, not perfection. And so that's the, like I said, that is the framework of our team. And so this also, then you need to think about the next layer of things. You need to think about, you know, your roof and closing in the structure of the house, right? So what helps you protect your inside of your house? And so when we think of that as adversity on the field, how to protect you from elements and adversity. And the way we do that as coaches is through application of our core values, application of our code of conduct, mechanisms of accountability, you know, keeping high standards within training and those elements. And so then from there, obviously, you have once you've got your frame, you've got your roof, inside, you then can put the finishing touches on things, which is the fun part, right? And so for us, some of those finishing touches are going to be the traditions that we have with our players and how we uphold that. Our community service and our servant leadership, our ability to give back. And so things like that are just those added elements, those added benefits that we get to provide for our players. So.
Of course, how has it been like obviously being the head coach and coaching on the sidelines and running the program, along with what is it like building the schedule and your coaching staff around you?
So you're only as good as the people that you obviously have around you. And so it's really important for me that the people we bring onto the program fit our values and our standards and our beliefs. Because obviously if we have two coaches that aren't seeing eye to eye when it comes to how we treat other people and how we treat our players, then it's probably not going to work. Obviously, we want to disagree about maybe tactical or technical elements, but for the most part, I want us to always be treating our players with respect and understanding that they're a person first, and that the player then develops from that. So we've really had a great deal of amazing support staff within our program. So,
Of course, what are some of the game day traditions that you've helped implement so far?
yeah. So our girls have their own game day individual traditions that they always do, or superstitions, as you might want to call them. But there is a song that our girls always play in the locker or in the setting prior to heading out to the field. And we also do a tradition in which we have, it's called finger tape. And so the players will write on that finger tape, they'll write the word all in, because that's our phrase for the year. They'll put that finger tape around their finger. And really what we want them doing is through those moments of hard times or adversity on the field, we want them to be able to look down at that finger tape and say, okay, I'm still all in. I'm gonna push through this right now. For the entirety of this game. And that's actually a tradition that I had back when I was a player in college as well too. So those little traditions and those things are really fun to see the girls embrace.
What does the recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to go into college women's soccer?
So, you know, I think that when you're talking about the recruitment process, it's very different for everyone. From male to female athletes to soccer players to lacrosse players, it's very unique to each sport. But the one thing that I will say, or the piece of advice that I will give, is it's not this linear process, right? It's not going to go from this point A to point B in a smooth trajectory up. there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be hills and valleys. And so my biggest advice is just understanding that it's not always going to go smoothly. There will be coaches and teams that don't necessarily think that you're the right fit for them, and vice versa. And so just continuing through your process through the adversity, I think, is really important.
Of course, as a head coach, what are some of the things that you look at in those prospective student athletes when on the road?
So when we're on the road and we're recruiting, there's a couple elements that we really look at. Obviously, the first element is in relation to our program. What are we actively seeking for that class? I know, for example, this next year, we're going to actively need to seek a goalkeeper. And so when we're on the road, that's something that's forefront in our mind, right? But then along with that, we look at, from a technical and tactical standpoint, what players are being impactful in the games, especially within the role that they're playing in. And then from there, we look at their work rate, and from there, we look at their attitude and, their body language. What does that look like? And then that further, after the evaluation process, if there has been first contact being made, we then continue the evaluation process from there. But typically that first evaluation process is seeing the technical and tactical elements of the player, their impact, and then also obviously their body language and their work rate.
Of course, what does it look like when those prospective student athletes come on the official visit to Lourdes?
Yeah. So once they are on campus, what we like to do is we like to have a very hands-on process with them, because our recruitment process is very detailed. And so we know every student that comes obviously on campus. We know a lot in terms of inside and out. And so we want to continue that process of building the relationship with them. And so we do all our tours and our talks ourselves. They'll come on, they'll tour campus, they'll meet with admissions, they'll maybe meet with academics if they choose to. And then we sit down and talk with them at length in regards to what they can expect within our program, where we see them fitting, and kind of go from there. So.
Of course, as a head coach, what's it like obviously seeing them put on that jersey and fall in love with your colors?
So that is one of the coolest experiences, I will say, is when you see a player truly fall in love with the university and their teammates and the program, and have just given their all. And, we see that when they're graduating, all their sacrifices that they've made, all the time that they've spent, all the relationships they've built over those 4 years. I mean, that is really one of the cool things of athletics, is just to simply see that. So.
Of course, as a head coach, was it like obviously seeing them go on to the next level and go into the NWSL?
So it's a lot of pride. You're very proud of these kids, because what all they've been through, the struggles that they've faced. You've sat there and had those conversations with them when they're in tears or they've had a really hard day. And so I love to see the growth and development of our players, and to see where they eventually end up, because that is, at the end of the day, that's part of my why, right? And that's part of why I do what I do, is I want them to find success in their world and what their world eventually comes to look like.
What are some of your future plans for the program?
So I have some immediate plans, obviously, and some immediate goals for our program, but then I have some really big wish and big goals and aspirations for our program as well too. But in the near future, we want to be within the top 4 of our conference and hosting our postseason tournament, and winning that first round tournament, and obviously eventually going on to the championship. That's within this year and the next 2 years. That's our goal. But long term for the program, what I'd love to do is eventually I'd love to put together a community-wide campaign in which we raise some funds for a field on campus and a locker room of our own. And so those are big wishes, those are big dreams, but I think eventually one day we want to get there.
What advice would you give those prospective student athletes looking to go into college and play women's soccer?
Biggest advice that I would give is to be your biggest hype man and to be your biggest advocate, because your strengths, your weaknesses, and unless you put yourself out there and really promote that, it's hard for coaches to see, because there's only a handful of opportunities to be seen by coaches at times, and And so I really strongly advocate for players reaching out to coaches and connecting with coaches and having them come out to games. And I think that's the best way to go about your recruitment process, is just being your biggest advocate.
What advice would you give those college soccer players looking to go to the next level, whether it's the NWSL, overseas, or even represent the U.S. national team?
For sure. I think the biggest thing for me is, what do your daily habits look like? What's your consistency like? What is your attention to detail like? Those I truly believe that the devil is in the details in everything. And so if you want to make those grand commitments and plans, you're going to have to do it daily, right? It can't just be something on the, Monday through Friday, it's got to be all the time, 24/7. Your habits have to reflect your goals. So,
Of course, what advice would you give those assistant coaches that are looking to coach in college and then obviously move up to the head coaching level?
I think the biggest thing for me is, you've got to be okay being in challenging, uncomfortable situations that maybe include a position that might be, maybe financially isn't necessarily what you're looking for, or an opportunity in a location that maybe you would have never thought. Take those chances, take those opportunities, and run with them and make the most of them once you do get them. Because I would have never guessed that I would have moved out to Michigan. I would have thought for sure I would have stayed back on the East Coast, but I'm forever thankful that I did, that I took that leap and took that jump and made the decision to move out here, because it ultimately led me to Lourdes and the position I'm in now. So it might not always be, like I said, a linear process. There's going to be some ups and downs, but don't be afraid to just simply do it.
What advice would you give those future head coaches looking to get started?
I would echo, kind of what I just mentioned, is obviously is taking that initiative and not being afraid to take some of those opportunities that you might not, think right away are going to be the best. But if you're consistent with it, and you have that true passion for it and will sacrifice for it, just continue plugging away and grinding away.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media, along with the Lourdes Women's Soccer Program at?
So you can find us at Lourdes Athletics. Obviously, on our athletics website, you have our schedule, my contact information are all there. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions or help guide you in any way.
Thank you again, Coach Jackie Phillips, for your interview, and best of luck in your future as you begin this journey at Lourdes University for the head women's soccer program.
Thank you so much. Take care.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Jackie Phillips, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.